The reported drone sightings that have consumed New Jersey.
There's a drone.
Now expanding to Bowie, Maryland, outside of Washington, where a group of 4 senators from New York and New Jersey are demanding a briefing from the FBI, FAA, and Homeland Security as soon as possible on how the agencies are working to identify and address the source of these incursions.
We don't know who is sending them, who's controlling them, whether they are spying.
I've been a little frustrated. There hasn't been enough transparency, letting people know what's happening. It's allowing a lot of potentially misinformation to spread, or at least fear.
At Rose's Luncheonette in Kenville, New Jersey, the drones are the talk of the town.
There's a lot of panic in the area.
The restaurant's owner says he was actually woken up by one.
It sounded like a helicopter. Looked out the window and you saw lights, you know, in the sky, like a green light, red light.
There's a pair of drones right here in front of me.
About a week ago, Mayor Sam Morris in nearby Mine Hill Township investigated reports of 8 drones flying by his government building.
You saw them right over there, right over this tree line.
He says local mayors are demanding answers, too.
If this smacks of a lack of control, and that makes people very uncomfortable.
Thursday, the White House downplaying concerns, saying the sightings are not military drones and do not come from a foreign threat. They aren't even sure if they're drones at all.
It appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully.
Rob D'Amico is the former head of the FBI's counter-drone unit, who says it can be easy to confuse drones with planes or other aircraft.
So you suspect that a large percentage of these sightings are actually manned aircraft?
I believe probably 90% of them are. And I think the other 10% are drones that are allowed to be flying.
Whatever's swooping around in the skies, locals believe they're not getting the full story.
Do you get the impression the federal government knows way more than what they're revealing to people?
Without a doubt.
I actually think a lot of people agree with him, because if it was a real threat, you would imagine the federal government would have said, uh-oh, Houston, we got a problem. But what are authorities doing to figure this out?
Yeah, that is the question, right? What are they doing? So according to this joint statement between the FBI and DHS, what they're doing right now is coordinating with state police and using personnel and technology, in their words, to investigate, are these actually drones? Are they manned flights? Are they inaccurate sightings? What was really interesting was to hear from the White House yesterday when they said they don't actually have their own imagery. They're largely going off of the imagery that's being provided by people that are reporting this. So they're combing through that as well. But to your question about if it were a real threat, speaking with the former head of the counter-drone unit for the FBI, he would know what he's talking about. If Russia or China were behind this, he said they wouldn't come in with lights on, huge amounts of sound, and be hovering over people's neighborhoods. So it's pretty apparent that they don't see a national security risk profile here. But what is it is the question that remains.
Well, and the fact that all of these lawmakers who are veterans are not, in the know, they don't know what it is kind of surprising too, I think.
There's just so much about it that doesn't smell right. It just doesn't, someone knows what those drones are.
And whoever it is, can you say, oh, sorry, guys, that was me? Like, can you?
Just tell us what you got, right? But the fact that we're talking about this for several minutes indicates that people just really want answers.
And several days, too, in a row.
All right, so let's get into all this drone stuff going on in New Jersey.
It's been kind of crazy. Everyone's been hitting us up with questions, and I totally get it. I mean, it's weird, right?
Yeah, for sure. Really strange.
It's like straight out of an X-Files episode or something. But instead of, little green men running around, we got these unexplained aircraft things just flying all over the place. So we've got a bunch of stuff to go through today. We got news reports and people who say they saw something, and then official statements and all that. And it's pretty wild. It's a really strange picture starting to form.
Yeah, what's really kind of getting to me
is
how they're describing these things.
Right.
We're not talking about something you just pick up at the store, something some hobbyist would just be messing around with.
Right.
These are big, people are saying they're the size of cars.
Wow.
Flying around at night with their lights off.
Yeah.
And they just disappear.
Yeah.
Poof. So that's pretty creepy. It makes you think what kind of tech are we talking about here?
Right.
And who's controlling these things?
Exactly.
It's a lot of questions, right?
Yeah, a lot of questions.
Okay, so let's try to break this whole thing down a little bit and go through what happened, when it all started.
Yeah.
So it looks like everything kind of kicked off on November 18th, 2024, that is.
Yeah.
Around the Raritan River. And Round Valley Reservoir. And then it just blew up from there,
Oh,
right?
yeah, totally. All of a sudden we had sightings everywhere. Picatinny Arsenal, Trump's off course in Bedminster, spreading across state lines. New York, Connecticut, Maryland.
Jeez.
And even there was this police officer in the Bronx who said he saw multiple drones flying over the city. And then they just vanish.
Oh, wow. So they're just like popping up and disappearing all over the place. So it's not even just like U.S. mainland. We've got reports coming in from like UK air bases, like across the Atlantic, which is crazy to think about. Like, that's a pretty big distance, as some people are saying. That maybe these things are super advanced, like way more advanced than anything we know about. Is that even possible?
When you look at how they describe them, like how big they are, how long they can fly, and how they just seem to dodge everything, it makes you wonder, like, is this stuff even, like normal drones?
Right.
Even Larry Hogan, who is the governor of Maryland, said he saw tons of these things near his house. And that's a pretty secure area, not too far from D.C.
Wow. So, like, if they can get that close to, like, important places like that, that's a big deal, right?
Absolutely. Like a huge security risk.
Yeah, that's scary. So what are the people in charge saying about all this? Like, are they taking this seriously?
Well, you would think so, right? I mean, the FBI's involved, Homeland Security, Governor Murphy, everyone's doing the whole press conference thing.
Right.
And saying they're investigating. The FAA even, which is like the Federal Aviation Administration, for anyone who might not know. They're doing these things called temporary flight restrictions, or TFRs, around places like Bedminster and the Arsenal.
Right.
So basically, no one can fly anything there without permission.
And so it sounds like they're like locking things down.
Yeah.
But are they actually telling people anything? Like, what's going on?
Not really. They keep saying it's an active and ongoing investigation, but they're not giving any details.
So frustrating.
It is.
Wow.
And like Jeff Van Drew, he's a representative from New Jersey. He's been going out and saying they need to be more open about it. He even called some of what they're saying nonsense.
Yikes. So we've got these mystery drones. The officials aren't saying anything. And a whole bunch of unanswered questions. It's no wonder people are coming up with their own ideas about what's happening.
Yeah.
But where do we even begin with that?
Well, the big one is maybe it's another country doing this.
Right.
People have been pointing fingers at Iran and China. Some were even saying maybe there's a mothership, like these little drones are coming from a bigger one. That we can't see.
That would be pretty wild.
It would. But the Pentagon said that's not happening.
Okay. So no giant alien mothership hiding in the sky.
Nope.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
But if it's not like Iran or China, then who is it? Is there anyone else that makes sense?
I mean, there are some possibilities, but we're kind of just guessing here.
Yeah, true.
Some officials have said maybe they're just regular planes that people thought were drones, or maybe it's some secret military thing, or even like some company testing new tech without permission.
But Don Fantasia, she's an assemblywoman. She said she saw them up close.
Oh, really?
And she says they're definitely drones, like massive drones. She even said they were evasive.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem like they're trying to avoid being seen.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really sound like some innocent mistake.
Right. It makes this whole thing even more complicated. If these are drones and they're trying not to be detected, well, then what are they doing here and who's behind them?
Yeah. Okay, so let's say for a second that they are drones, like intentionally sneaky drones.
Right.
And it's not some government thing or just planes people saw wrong. What does that mean? Like, what kind of problems could that cause?
Oh, right. I mean, that's a big worry, right? If these things can just fly around undetected, it opens up a lot of possibilities for some pretty bad stuff.
Right. Like, what kind of bad stuff are we talking about here?
Well, espionage is a big one.
Oh, right.
Like, imagine these drones have high-resolution cameras or other sensors. They could be gathering information from government buildings, military bases, even people's homes.
Oh, wow. So they could be like flying spies.
Yeah.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah. And then there's smuggling. We're talking drones big enough to carry, a decent amount of stuff, like drugs, weapons, who knows what else.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying to think about. And it sounds like we don't even really have a way to stop them right now. I mean, if you can't even find them, how do you stop them?
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, how do we even defend against something we can't see? It's something lawmakers are trying to figure out right now, along with security experts. This whole situation has really shown us that we need to be better at detecting drones, figuring out how to stop them.
Right. So are we talking about like some kind of crazy system that hunts drones down? Like something out of a movie?
Well, there are a bunch of different things people are trying. Some are using radar that's specifically designed to pick up small things flying low. Others are trying to jam their signals, the signals the drones use to communicate,
Right.
So that forces them to land or go back to whoever's controlling them. Even Connecticut, they've been testing out a new system near their naval bases in Groton and New London because of all the sightings they've had.
Wow. So this is like a serious problem now. And I bet it's going to lead to a lot of debate about how we regulate drones.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There are already people calling for stricter rules about who can own a drone and how they can use it. Because right now, anyone can buy a pretty advanced drone online, and there's not a lot of oversight.
Right. So we're talking about like stricter licenses or something, or making people register their drones.
Exactly. Some people even want to limit where and when you can fly them, especially near important places. Others want to make technology that automatically grounds drones if they go into restricted airspace.
Wow. It sounds like it's going to be hard to find the right balance. Like, we don't want to stop people from making new, cool drone stuff.
Yeah.
But we also need to make sure they're not being used to hurt people.
Yeah, that's the tough part. It's about finding that balance between what drone technology can do, which is amazing, by the way, and making sure it's used responsibly.
Yeah.
Drones can totally change industries.
Right.
Like, think about delivering packages, searching rescue missions, taking pictures from the air.
Yeah.
But in the wrong hands, that same tech could be really dangerous. Dangerous for our safety and our privacy.
And this whole thing in New Jersey has made that super clear, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, it's a wake-up call. We're living in a world where drones are a real thing. And we need to be ready for that, both the good stuff and the bad stuff.
So what does all this mean for the people listening? Like, what's the takeaway from all this?
I think the big thing is we're all living in a world where tech is everywhere. And sometimes that tech moves faster than we can understand it or control it.
Right.
We need to stay informed, talk about this stuff, and make sure our leaders are finding solutions that keep us safe and protect our freedoms.
It's about more than just drones, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about how we deal with technology.
Yeah.
As a society.
Exactly. This whole drone mystery might seem like something just happening in New Jersey.
Right.
But it's actually a much bigger story. It's about drones becoming more common. And the questions they bring up about our privacy, our security, and who controls the airspace.
Okay, so we've talked about the possible dangers, the tech itself, and the rules we might need. But we still don't know who's flying these things or why they're doing it. That's got to be frustrating for people.
It is, but even without all the answers, we can still learn from this.
Right.
This whole deep dive has been about figuring out this mystery and showing what it could mean for the future of drones and how we interact with tech.
And hopefully it's giving you some things to think about. This is a story that's still unfolding, so we'll probably have more to talk about in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Stay informed. And most importantly, stay curious.
You got it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if these drones can just like sneak around our airspace, it's a problem.
Right.
It means there are like holes in our defenses. And someone could use those holes to do some pretty bad things.
Like, specifically, what are we talking about? What kind of threats are we looking at?
Well, for one thing, they could be spying.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if these drones have really good cameras or sensors, they could be collecting info. Like, from government buildings, military bases, even, like, your house.
So, like, they could be flying spies, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah. It is. And then there's the whole smuggling thing, too.
Right.
We're talking about drones big enough to carry a good amount of stuff. Drugs, weapons, who knows?
Jeez, that's pretty disturbing.
It is.
And it sounds like we're not really prepared for this kind of thing, are we?
Not really, no.
Like, if you can't even see them, how are you supposed to stop them?
Exactly. That's the big question everyone's trying to answer right now.
Right.
People in government security experts, everyone's trying to figure out how to detect these things and how to stop them.
So are we talking about like some kind of high-tech drone hunting system? Like something straight out of a movie?
Well, there are a bunch of different ideas out there.
Okay.
Some people are talking about using special radar systems that are designed to pick up small things flying low. Others are trying to jam the drone's communication signals.
Oh, so they can't talk to whoever's controlling them.
Exactly. That would force them to either land or go back to their operator. Connecticut's actually testing a system like that near their naval bases in Groton and New London.
Really?
Yeah, because they've had a lot of sightings, too.
Wow. So this is obviously a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm guessing all of this is going to lead to more talk about drone regulations, right?
Definitely. I mean, people are already calling for stricter rules about who can own a drone and how they can use it. Because right now, it's pretty easy to get your hands on a sophisticated drone. Like, you can just order one online. And there's not a lot of oversight.
So are we talking about things like stricter licensing requirements or making people register their drones.
Exactly. Those are some of the ideas being thrown around. Some people even want to limit where and when drones can be flown, especially near sensitive areas. And then there's the idea of using technology to automatically ground drones if they enter restricted airspace.
It sounds like it's going to be a challenge to find the right balance there.
It is.
Like, you don't want to stop people from innovating.
Yeah.
But you also have to make sure these things aren't being used for something bad.
Yeah. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we can still take advantage of all the cool things drones can do.
Right.
But also make sure they're being used responsibly.
What are some of the good things drones can be used for?
Well, I mean, think about it. Delivering packages, search and rescue missions, taking pictures from the air. The possibilities are kind of endless.
Yeah, they are.
But like I said before, in the wrong hands, this technology can be pretty dangerous, not just for our safety, but for our privacy too.
And this whole situation in New Jersey has really brought that to light, right?
Absolutely. It's like a wake-up call.
Uh-huh.
Drones are here to stay.
Right.
And we need to figure out how to deal with that.
Both the good and the bad.
Exactly.
So for everyone listening, what's the big takeaway from all of this?
I think it comes down to this. We live in a world where technology is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And sometimes it evolves faster than we can keep up with.
Right.
So it's important to stay informed, to talk about these issues, and make sure our leaders are finding solutions that protect us and protect our freedoms.
So it's bigger than just drones, isn't it?
It is.
It's about how we deal with technology as a society.
Yeah, exactly. This drone thing might seem like it's just happening in New Jersey.
Right.
But it's a sign of what's to come. Drones are going to become more and more common, and we need to be ready for that. Think about the questions it raises about our privacy, our security, who controls the skies.
Those are all important questions.
They are.
Okay, so we've talked about the threats, the technology,
right,
the regulations.
Yeah.
But we still don't have an answer to the biggest question. Who's behind these drones? And what are they trying to do?
Yeah, that's the frustrating part.
It is.
But even without all the answers, we can still learn a lot from what's happening. This deep dive has been about exploring this mystery, looking at the technology involved, and thinking about what it all means for the future of drones and how we deal with technology as a society.
And hopefully it's giving you some things to think about, too. This is definitely a story that's still unfolding.
Yeah.
It is. Stay tuned.
Stay informed. And like we said before, stay curious.
I mean, it's crazy. It's like actually happening right now. It's like we're living in a sci-fi movie or something, except instead of aliens, we've got these creepy drones.
Yeah, that creepy feeling. That's the worst part. It's the not knowing. Like, usually we have answers, explanations, but this, it's just a bunch of questions.
And when you don't know anything, your mind starts to go to some weird places.
Right.
Like, is this some secret government thing?
Right.
Or some tech genius doing their own thing?
Right.
Or maybe something even crazier that we haven't thought of yet.
Yeah, it's wild how quickly you start thinking about those things.
Right.
But even without all the crazy theories, there are some real things to worry about here. Like, how do we stop stuff like this from happening again? How do we make sure drones, which can be really useful, are only used for good stuff?
We've talked about the rules and stuff, like stricter licenses and flight restrictions, but it feels like we're always a step behind. Like we're just reacting to things instead of preventing them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We need to be thinking ahead. Like, what's the next big drone thing going to be? And how do we make sure it fits into the world in a good way? And that's going to take everyone working together. Governments, companies, everyday people. Everyone needs to be talking about this.
So it's not just about stopping the bad drones.
Right.
It's about shaping how we use this technology in the future.
Exactly.
And there are some pretty amazing things we could do with drones, right?
Yeah.
Like delivering packages, helping with search and rescue, maybe even changing how we travel completely.
Totally. The possibilities are huge.
Yeah.
But we can't just focus on the good stuff. We have to think about the bad stuff, too. Well, privacy is a big one.
Right.
Like, imagine drones watching us all the time, collecting info about our lives. That's not a future I want to live in.
It's a lot to think about. This whole drone thing in New Jersey, it might seem like something small, but it's really showing us what the future could be like, a future with drones everywhere.
Yeah.
And that future could be good or bad.
Exactly. And that's what we want you to take away from this. We've talked about the mystery, the tech, the dangers, but the real goal is to make sure you're informed.
Right.
And that you're part of the conversation.
The future of drones is being decided right now. And we all have a say in it.
So stay curious, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to demand answers.
Because the choices we make today are going to shape the world we live in tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And that's something we all need